is that the problem?
I mean, if you can download a copy from YouTube, then it'll be fine.
Did it go? I think it's going now.
Is it on both?
Yeah, it should be going now. Woohoo! Ooh, looking good.
I don't know how to tell if it's going on mine though.
Oh, I disabled. We couldn't do 2 YouTube channels,
Okay.
so I disabled yours so that we
Okay.
can have comments on there. But we should be going. All right. Hey guys, welcome to this live show. We are Eric and Steve here, and this show is Between Two Wheels. We just wanted to do a weekly live show and talk about bikes because we love talking about bikes, and I know a lot of you guys also like talking about bikes. So let's talk bikes. All right, first let's talk about who the heck we are. Let's start with Eric over here. Who are you, Eric?
I'm Eric Harrison. I grew up in California. I was into surfing, skating, and snowboarding as I grew up out there. And so coming out here, I didn't have the surfing part, so I jumped into mountain biking about 20 years ago. Kind of started getting a little more serious about 15 years ago, and then as Strava came into view, I got way more serious. And I just love biking. I do have a road bike. I mostly mountain bike though, and I fat bike now in the winter. So.
It is winter. We are literally in my garage, and it is a little cold. It's still pretty warm for January, but man, what a weird winter. So I'm Steve. I've been biking since I was a kid. My dad was one of those original spandex warriors on one of those rigid mountain bikes. I think my first mountain bike I bought from him, and it had the 1-inch elastomer shock on it that was brutal on slick rock. So, but now I've been biking since I was a teenager. I do road biking, I do mountain biking, and I got this fat bike this year, and that's why we're going to talk about fat biking. I also have a plus bike, so I started biking on the snow last year on the plus bike and wanted to upgrade, so we're going to talk about that. But yeah, so I have a varied background. I've biked in Utah, and I lived out in the desert in California, biked out there for a little bit in San Diego area. But yeah, so that's us. Let's talk about some stuff now. So we wanted to talk about, because it's winter, we're going to talk about fat biking. Both Eric and I got into fat biking kind of together. And so one of the first things I wanted to talk about was, like, where does fat biking fit on the funno scale? Like the scale of fun. Because, you have, like, mountain biking is, like, the most fun, and road biking, people say, is down here, right? But so where does fat biking fall on that fun scale? What do you think, Eric?
Well, actually, it's crazy fun, but it's also pretty high on the pain scale. I needed to mention that because you just don't realize how much work it is to be climbing through snow when you don't have a lot of traction. But it is definitely fun. You get to the top and you start coming down, and honestly, like, we've had some kind of good times lately because on some of the trails that we're riding, the snow is filled in around a lot of the rocks and things, and we were just flying down it. So it definitely is fun, and when you crash, it's definitely not as painful. So
yes.
That part I like a lot.
Yes. I think that's a big part of, like, the crashing. You can kind of go balls to the wall and, like, put a foot out and drift around corners, and you're not so afraid of, like, eating it hard on the dirt. So in my opinion, like, it's exactly what Eric said. There's pain. I mean, and one of the things that we're going to talk about next is, like, is fat biking an old man sport? Because it is a painful thing. But when you turn around and come back down, it can be a whole lot of fun on single track and a big adrenaline rush. So I also wanted to mention, because we're on live, if you guys comment, if those who are watching can comment on the Facebook or on YouTube where we're streaming this, we can pull up your comments and discuss what you're saying. So feel free to comment, and we'll try to not be too mean about your comment, and we'll try to have fun, make jokes. But yeah, okay. So we've decided. So road biking, mountain biking. Where would you put fat biking?
I mean,
yeah.
you don't have as much. You have so much more finesse on a mountain bike. Honestly, like, it's much faster, really, in most of what you're doing. But it's still quite fun, and I'm big into snowboarding in the winter. But honestly, I just love that I can now work out, on the fat bike, and it's a different kind of fun coming down on the fat bike than on a snowboard. So compare that to a mountain bike, I'd say still not, definitely not as fun as a mountain bike, but it's worth it. It's better than
Better than a trainer.
it's definitely way better than being indoors for any sort of exercise. I hate exercising indoors.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's address the big question here. Is fat biking an old man sport? So, Eric, are you an old man?
I am. I'm an old man.
So I feel like I'm reaching the old man status. I'm getting some gray hairs in my beard here. So, but I always feel like when I'm out biking with these groups, that I'm like one of the youngest guys out there. And it made me think, like, why is it all these old men who, and I'm including myself in that because, like, I'm not a whippersnapper anymore. So why are they the ones who are getting out on fat bikes? What do you think, Eric?
You know, I rode with some guys down from the Nebo area, the Nebo group guys, and a lot of them were heavy into road biking, and somehow they got the connection into fat biking from road biking, I think. And a lot of them are my age, or some are a little older. And I honestly think, like, if you were not in great shape, you could have a heart attack climbing on a fat bike. So I don't know if it's really an old man sport, but if you stay fit, I think maybe that's what it is. Maybe the fact that you can ride a fat bike in the winter keeps you in shape and feeling younger, so that when you hit the trails and hit the road in the spring, you're not super out of shape. And maybe that's why it's an old man's thing, because the young guys can bounce back each year.
Yeah.
Where us old guys, maybe we need to stay current on our skills.
No, I think that's I've noticed that too, like in some of the groups that I've ridden on, it's road bikers who are coming over into fat biking. That there are these hardcore road bikers who do well on a fat bike. And I've been thinking about that, like why would these road bikers do well on a fat bike? And I think part of it is that fat biking is a total grind. Like your average speed, you'll go like 8 miles in an hour and a half, and you'll come back and your average speed is like 3 miles an hour. And I think
you're trashed.
And you're trashed. And I think the road bikers like are used to that grind where they pedal both ways, both uphill and downhill, and they're not looking for that the 3 mile descent where it's all just. Most of their ride is just cranking it and grinding. So I think they're more used to that grind. They're more used to getting out in the cold as well.
It's less technical too, honestly, than mountain biking. So
I think that's true.
You know, the snow covers a lot of the stuff that you deal with as far as tech goes on a mountain bike. So
yeah, just the other day we came down a trail, a single track, Pine Hollow, and we were only a couple of seconds off of our time on dirt. You were faster than your fastest time on dirt.
I was 37 seconds faster than my fastest time. But I wasn't really working hard the last time I mountain biked it, I don't think. I don't know. I'd have to see. We'll have to see in the spring how I do.
Yeah.
If I can break that.
Cool. Well, so let's go and talk. We haven't gotten any comments yet, so let's just keep on going into... Oh, look at that. Look at that. Let's pull up this. All right, Spencer says, I do my grinding in the club, old man.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, you. All right. Well, old men like grinding out in the wilderness and getting a workout. All right. So let's talk about gear. We are on gear. So, oh, wait, no. Okay, yeah. We've talked about is it hard, is it expensive? So let's talk about gear. How do we get into it? How much does it cost to get into fat biking? What do you think, Eric?
Well, so I mean, you need the bike, of course, to start off with, and honestly, you can get into fat biking for under $1,000 as far as the bike goes. My bike, I think, cost me like $800 or something. I got a really good deal on it, but yeah. So you have a rigid frame. You don't have to deal with shocks, the expense of that, and you have, you want to have a light fork, I guess. I have a carbon fork, so that helps on the weight. But honestly, like I'm riding a tank, but it's fun. And you're pulling up a hill. It's going to take you forever anyway, and you're slow anyway and stuff. So it's okay that you're riding an aluminum frame.
Yeah, and honestly, so when I asked my wife, I was like, "Hey, I want to get a fat bike," and she's like, "Oh no, how much is this going to cost?" And when I told her, "Oh, it's only going to be like around $1,000," she's like, "What? Why is it so cheap? What are you, like, you're lying about something, I know it."
No,
like,
you should have started higher.
I know, I should be like, I need a full carbon one, that's going to be $2,000.
You start with $3,000, work your way down. But.
Yeah, but so you can get into the sport for relatively cheap. Now, that doesn't include, like, so I bought this bike. This is a Scott. It was a 2017 model that I bought at the end of 2017. So I got a good deal. I got like $500 off of the MSRP.
Nice. So,
and then plus I traded in an old mountain bike. So I walked out the door for this with like around $830 or something like that, which is a screaming deal.
Yeah. And how much does that weigh?
So this one now, so I've done some modifications. I've made it tubeless. I've converted it to a 1x, and so it weighs about 31.5 pounds now, and that includes the weight of the pedals as well.
Yeah.
So that's pretty reasonable. I mean,
Great.
you don't need like a super lightweight bike if you're just out to get a workout in the winter.
I mean, my bike's like 34.5 pounds, and I still have fun.
Yeah.
It's heavy.
I mean, you're wearing so much gear.
Yeah.
I feel like the weight of the bike doesn't affect it as much.
Yep.
So let's talk about like because like in any biking sport, you need a whole bunch of gear to support it. So what did you start out with in learning how to like stay warm and get into all the gear?
Okay. So, I mean, you got to figure out the foot problem, and I started off with boots, and I switched back because we can have a different discussion about pedals, but I switched back to actually my mountain bike shoes because I have these shoe covers that are pretty warm, and they're working, but I really like to be clipped into the bike. So feet are like the worst thing. Your toes get so cold. And then the other problem is your fingers, and so you need some good gloves. But after that, you basically just need some layers. Long underwear, some shell pants of some sort, and of course you're biking, so you want more of like the skinnier pants or something.
Yeah, and Stephen Burkholder said, like, I've purposed a lot of gear from other winter sports for fat biking, boots, gloves, jackets. Exactly. So like if you have good ski gear, if you have like ski gloves, snowboarding gloves, you have like snowboarding goggles you've worn, and all that stuff, like you can use that in fat biking. So I bought some boots that were for they're also good for like snowshoeing. So if you like to snowshoe, there's a lot of gear that you have. So I just ride in boots that were meant for snowshoeing.
Nice.
So you can save a lot in crossover. Like it's not like mountain biking, I feel like, where you have
the specific
gear that you have to wear. Like it's just generic winter things. And there are a couple like specific winter things that I think you need for fat biking. Like, let's see if you can see them over here. You can see these.
Oh, right.
Over here, these bar mitts. So that's one of the expenses that I think is worth it, is to keep your hands warm, because that's a big thing in fat biking, right? Is staying warm. So what are some of the challenges in staying warm on fat bike?
I mean, so one of the big problems is that you overheat quickly, so you can't wear like a big heavy jacket. It's all about the layers. You have, you probably will keep on your jersey and maybe one other really thin layer throughout the whole ride, depending on the temperature. But we've been riding in what, 25 degrees?
I feel like
20.
This year it's been warmer than it was last year. I feel like last year we were riding like single-digit temperatures, and that was
even
harder.
then I would get pretty warm. I ride pretty warm. So
yeah, I do too. So usually when starting out, I have just like a decent windbreaker. And by the time I'm cranking even in 20 degrees, if I'm going up a steep hill, like I'm down to just my base layer.
Yeah.
So you get warm pretty quick if you're moving.
Yeah, but so some layers that you can shed, and I like to wear a backpack so I can shove the layers in there, when I'm not using it. So
yeah. So and like, do we talk about the things that get cold when you're fat biking are your hands, your toes, and sometimes your face. If you're down in the single digits, you want like a balaclava or something. But you might already have one from snowboarding or skiing or something.
I wear that even actually when it's not that cold, because I just like to have my face kind of covered up. So.
Yeah, I just have to cover my ears, and that's why I have a beard right now, is to keep my face warm in the winter. So that's gear. Let's see. Are there any other gear that we've missed? I think any other specific gear?
I mean, we could get all into boots and stuff.
Boots and pedals. We could talk about that right now, and then we can talk about how you know when to go. So let's. So pedals. Let's talk about pedals real quick. So I ride flats, and you ride your
Crank Brothers. I don't mind. I don't hate flats. It's just climbing for me is hard on flats, and that's probably also that maybe I'm lazy coming down, and I've grown accustomed to being hooked to my flat or to my Crank Brothers. But that's bad. I should wear flats more.
Yeah.
I'd be a better biker.
Oh, and Stephen Burkholder Burkholder makes another great point. I bring a backpack with extra gloves and jackets for downhill. Clothes are light, and that's a great thing. Like I try to bring extra gloves and stuff in my pockets or whatever, so that when you turn around and come, because there is a big temperature difference when you're when you're going uphill to when you're going downhill. So it's good to have an extra layer.
On whatever you have for coming down.
Yeah. So okay, back to you have your Crank Brothers. I wear boots. So why do you switch back to the Crank Brothers?
I think really it's the climbing that I mostly feel like I need them. It helps me just to get in that rhythm of climbing, being able to not just do the downstroke, but also the upstroke as I pull.
Yeah.
What I really need to do is buy a pair of, like the 45 North Wolf hammers or something.
Those are so expensive.
Yeah, like $300.
Those are so expensive. Like the boots that I got were like $120 off of Amazon. And so I feel like I have a hard time justifying getting those really expensive clipless boots. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I like having. Let's see. Steve Winter says I always take 2 pairs of gloves. Yep.
I
Totally.
keep meaning to do that, and every time I get to the top, I remember that I forgot to throw them in. So.
Yeah. And so for boots, for me, I like having the flats because it's so slippery and you're like going all over the place that I like to have a foot ready to pop out and just really fast and just. And when I started riding on my Plus bike, my normal mountain bike with clipless pedals. And every time I stepped off the bike, and I just had SPDs, and I bet Crank Brothers are a lot better for it. But the SPDs that I had would get all gummed up with frozen snow and ice, and so I wouldn't be able to clip back in once I put a foot down. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I've been enjoying the flats. So it's the same debate on fat bike as it is on mountain bike. Flats versus clips.
I wouldn't run SPDs in the snow.
No, I wouldn't
at
either,
all. Like
definitely
the
not.
Crank Brothers are perfect. Pop them in, pop them out. You can walk on the snow and then jump on your pedals, and they work fine. So.
Yeah, but if you already have some nice warm boots, you might as well try flats, and then if those aren't good for you, do what Eric did and switch to clipless. All right, so let's talk about. Let's see, what do you guys ride? Do you guys ride flats or clipless in the winter? I know that we've got a couple comments. Let us know, and if you have an opinion, why or not. So let's talk a little bit about how do you know when to go. Because there's always this debate, and it's all about PSI or whatever. But I think the biggest question is knowing when to go. So when do you know? When do you go, Eric?
Well, I mean, after it snows is pretty rough, right? Until you get someone laying down some tracks, and we have some pretty hardcore people. Stephen Burkholder says he runs flats for the winter only. So you have some pretty hardcore people that go and lay down first tracks in that snow. And I was thinking about this the other day. When you're doing that, it's super hard. And then all of a sudden, if you have someone who's snowmobiled through there and flattened some of that powder out, you're like, hooray for snowmobiles. And you just love those guys. And then after the fat bikers build out a track and you're climbing on the track and you realize that a snowmobile came by later and tore up that track, then you hate snowmobiles. It's but really the very best time to ride, I think, is after, at least for us, because we are super lucky to have the Forest Service up here, after they groom the trails. It is so nice. It's like a ski run with the corduroy snow, and it's packed, and it is so nice.
Yep.
So that's my favorite time to ride.
Yeah, I agree. It's usually a day or two after the snowstorm is when conditions are best. Yeah. And I realized that when I was riding 3-inch tires opposed to these 5-inch tires that I have, is that on the 3-inch tires I had to wait 2 or 3 days until it really got packed down. But now with the 5-inch tires, I can wait maybe the next day. Then conditions are really good. And we've had times where we've tried to go up just to maybe how high? Maybe 6,000 feet. Is that where South Maple Hollow is?
Oh, yeah.
And there were snow drifts, and it was completely unrideable. But then we went up to American Fork, and we started at, how high were we? 7,000 feet. See, Wonder candy pedals. Is that what you have?
That's what I have, candies. Yeah.
Yeah, and I still clip in 90% skateboard tape. Oh, interesting, skateboard tape. You should give that a try.
So some grip tape you stick to the around the body of the pedal, maybe. Is that what he's saying?
Yeah, it's cool. The candies have they have the clipless part, and then they have a platform.
Then they have
right?
a little
so
platform,
you have to
small.
put it on the platform.
And I've seen some nicer, bigger platform pedals, about that big. I can't remember the name of them. There was D something or other, where they have actually the egg beater only on one side, which are great because then you can ride the flats when you need them and then just flip them over and clip in. So
Yeah. So we have a question here. I own a Surly ECR. How would it perform in the snow? Tire width is 3 inches.
3 inches.
So I
That's
rode,
what you-
I rode a 3-inch bike all last winter. I even did a fat bike race. Oh no, we have a garbage truck coming. Anyways, so I rode all last winter on 3-inch tires, and it was okay. Like I had fun. I rode a lot, but sorry, True Garage. We have a little background noise. But so, when the trails were groomed, after like a bunch of fat bikes, you know they say like, why do fat bikers ride in single file to hide their numbers or something like that, right? So like when I was following him, I would have to follow him. He had 4-inch tires, I had 3-inch tires, and I had to stay like exactly in his path. Or if it had been groomed by snowmobiles, then it was good.
that was fine.
But otherwise, so it's completely doable.
Yeah, but now that he has the wider tires, I have trouble keeping up with him. I am in back now, so.
Yep. And Stephen Burkholder also says that he goes in snowshoes. That's another thing. Like the snowshoers, they pack down the snow quite a bit and make it a lot more rideable for us fat bikers.
We appreciate you.
We appreciate you. Yeah, I need to get a pair of snowshoes so I can go out and do that. My snowshoes broke last year. Tragic. All right, so when to go, and one of the things is like you said, finding other people to go with. So what have been your best ways to find people to go with?
I mean, just like friends, and we keep in touch with a Slack page so that we can kind of know when other people are going, and then of course there's Facebook groups or whatever.
Yeah, and something that I found is like a lot of the bike shops. There are a couple bike shops around here that do group rides. Go find them on Instagram, like Bike Peddler. On Instagram, they do group rides when conditions are good. What are some of the other ones that do group rides?
That's the only one I've ever been on.
There are also some cycling groups, so try to find like local cycling groups on social media and go into your bike shops and see if they have a group ride. So I've gone a couple of times with some different bikes. They even demo bikes. So if you don't have a flat bike, you can go demo a bike for free, and they'll bring it up to the trailhead, and you just hop on and ride, which is a pretty sweet deal. So one of the other things that I found to do fat biking is Frosty's Fat Bike Race. Go see if there's a race series around you. Unfortunately, there hasn't been enough snow, so they've canceled a bunch of the races. But if they do races in conditions that are good, so you know.
And they groom it out too for
Yeah.
you, right? Yeah. So I've never done it just because I get super stressed in a competition like that. I should do it. I've been meaning to do it, but
Yeah, if they ever have one.
yeah, that's true.
There's a race
missed anything.
next Tuesday, and it's
Oh,
a
is it?
downhill race at Sundance. So you should come.
Maybe I'll do that.
You should come. It'll be a lot of fun.
Nervous.
Yeah, and something that you had mentioned is like trying to ride whenever, right? So how does that help you like know when to go when you're riding whenever?
I mean, just so like I went out today and it was not ideal conditions. I had no idea what it would be like. It's been what, a week since it snowed.
Yeah.
But what was awesome about it, you just encounter all kinds of different conditions, and it's all fun, honestly. And so what it was like today was it was icy on the single track, so it was like really sketchy, but you know, it's fun to try and go fast and not die, I guess. So that was fun. The climbing was crazy fast. Like I hardly even had a workout because it was like so packed down, and I just cruised right up it. So it's just fun to get out in all conditions and see what you have. You know, I've been out when it was like blizzarding before, and it's like
That can be
fun because
That
it's
can
just
be
an
fun.
adventure.
Yeah.
You know, you're
Yeah.
outside.
Yeah, you never. I mean, it's if you've ever like talked to and you surf, right?
Yeah.
Because I know like
Not in Utah, but
well, no, but like when I was living out in San Diego, you talk to these surfers and they'd be like, oh, they'd be looking out at the ocean, be like, oh, it's a good day today, and I'd be like, I don't see what you're seeing, you know. And I think it just takes time to learn the
to
conditions.
see the conditions.
So now when I look out the window, I'm like, oh yeah, it's gonna be good today,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So it's if you ride every time, and sometimes you'll have to turn around and go back home, but if that happens, it
Yeah.
happens. So
Or
get
go
out
to a
and
different
ride.
trail like what we did the other day. You know?
Yeah, try a different location.
Buried in snow piles, and then we went and found something good. So
Yep. Yeah, okay. So what are the different snow conditions? I mean, we've talked a little bit about like the groomed part, but But like
Yes.
if you're going out and there's fresh powder compared to like it's completely frozen or
So yeah, I mean the snow falls, it's fresh powder. Powder is so different though. There's lots of different kinds of powder, as maybe you know if you ski or snowboard. But there's like really heavy powder, and then there's really light powder, and then so that really changes how it rides. If it's heavy powder but not a lot of it, it's actually crazy
perfect.
fun.
It's like there's a layer of velvet and it's just super
Yeah.
smooth, right?
But if it's like really light powder and not much, then you don't really care because it just blows out of the way. But if it's a lot of light powder, it's awful because you can't like get any traction, you know?
Yeah.
So just so many different conditions. One condition that I love that I really hope we can experience this year, but since we haven't had any snow, we might not. It's scary, but and that is in spring. And when everything is in the morning, it's all smashed down old powder that is frozen. You don't have to be on a certain track. You can just cruise all over the place. And to me, that feels actually a lot like snowboarding because like you can go look for like little things to jump off and little areas to climb through, and it is a blast. So I
Yeah.
really like it when it's like that. Non-ideal conditions, but you know, you get it when it's frozen and it's amazing.
Yeah, and last year, we haven't gotten that this year because
Just not much snow.
not much snow. But last year, too, there was this weird phenomenon where, like, up in the canyons, there was maybe, like, 4 feet of snow. I mean, there was tons of snow. And the sun would come out, and it would melt a little layer at the top, and then it would refreeze. And you'd get this super crusty layer that if you
Yeah.
had low enough pressure and wide enough tires, you could stay up on top of, but you'd be over, like, a whole bunch of powder. It was crazy.
Just try not to break through, because when you break through,
You're
you
stuck.
You need to get more, take air out of your tire probably. But if you keep breaking through, it just is no fun. So.
Yeah, and here, Stephen Burkholder knows the AF Suncrest. Oh, wait,
Yeah.
oh, whoops. Did I not send the right? Here, wait, let's see. There we go. AF Suncrest. Yes.
Yeah.
Those are the craziest conditions.
Suncrest is good.
Yeah. So, what are there any other weird conditions that you've
Snow
come
conditions?
across? It's like we've talked about actual groomed and then slush.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Oh, okay. Well, no, slush. We didn't really talk
We
about
didn't really talk about slush.
too much. Slush is fun, I think. It's sloppy. You're just kind of like all over the place. And that's fun to do, you know, sliding around. And you get plastered with slush all over your gear. And it's an adventure.
yeah, and you get messy.
Yeah.
You get messy.
Yeah.
So, but it still can be fun. And usually, like, if you can stay away from the dirt.
Yeah.
But sometimes you also get, like, frozen dirt, where you get patches of, like, snow and then frozen dirt. And those are prime because you get so much traction.
Yeah,
when the dirt's
frozen dirt is good.
All right. So I think that's most of our fat biking stuff. So let's talk about, like, so if in a winter like now, where here in Utah it's been a mild winter. So what are some other good, like, winter trail riding that you've done? Because you've been all over.
I mean, so right now, the only place I would actually ride is Eagle Mountain. And I really can't go check it out because my bike's in the shop. I have to get a new shock. But Eagle Mountain is excellent right now. And I highly recommend getting out there and enjoying it. There's new trail development going on, and there's just some really fun trails out there. Flintstone was closed for a long time, and
Now
that
it's back
seems to be
open,
back
right?
open, which is exciting.
Hopefully it'll stay open for a
Yeah,
while.
Yeah.
You never know.
If you haven't ridden Flintstone, it's a great trail that they kind of built on the sly. I think it's got a lot of drops everywhere, and
It's got some huge drops. I haven't hit them all. I do not have the balls to go off of some of those drops that you see.
Yeah,
Because it's like,
some people have been posting some sick drops.
yeah. And of course they posted
Kudos to you
the
guys,
video
that's
of a
awesome.
9-year-old going over
Yeah.
like this 12-foot drop. and
Making
it's-
us look dumb.
Yeah. I'll go back to my old man fat biking.
Yeah. No, there's some good stuff out there. You should check it out.
Yeah. I haven't ridden a bunch of the new trails. My bike, my dropper post needs some work. So
Bikes are so expensive.
bikes, they're so expensive. Don't tell my wife. No, she's actually listening. So what are your favorite winter trails that you guys ride? So because a
We need
lot of
more.
people are riding out in St. George.
Oh, yeah.
Right. I saw. Let's see. There was a couple guys who were riding out in the dunes, and I think that St. George is prime right now.
Yeah.
So when are we going to
Yeah.
St. George?
Well, I'm actually going to St. George over President's Weekend.
are?
Yeah.
Can I come with?
Please,
Can I
yeah,
hop
come
in your
out.
car?
I'm gonna do so much riding that weekend, so I'm really excited. So there's that. I also actually rode Vegas. If you saw any of my videos on my channel, I posted a couple of videos from that. Blue Diamond was incredible. So if you have to go out to Vegas for something, take your bike.
Have you been out to Diamond Fork? Have you done the Diamond Fork
I haven't
trails?
done Diamond Fork. I know those. Yeah, let's see, the hot pots. Yeah,
Yeah,
I haven't done
no.
it, and those guys keep talking about how good it is.
Yeah,
so.
I've hiked that before, but I've never biked it. And I see like pictures of people like jumping in the hot springs.
Yeah, Daniel was in
Yeah.
his swim trunks, jumping in,
Jumping in,
and then
riding in the
biking
snow.
after that. Yeah. So.
Yeah, that seems like that'd be uncomfortable, but hey, people love it. I'll have to try it one of these days.
Yeah.
So, yeah, because you were talking about Vegas. You were down in Vegas.
Yeah.
Because
So,
that's not too far.
I mean, it really was. I mean, what was it? 6-hour drive? I can't remember. It wasn't bad though. Like, go down there, stay for a few days, and so I rode in Blue Diamond, which was such a fun area. It's beautiful and just great loops. They just have this little like rock formation in this town right here, and you just ride your bike basically around that. And these different, you can get wider, bigger loops or smaller loops. You can go over this rock formation, which is crazy fun, called the Hurl. That's a fun trail, just really exposed. There's another trail I really want to ride out there that one of the guys that follows me on my channel told me about, and that's called Many Thanks. And I've heard that is incredible. And I was reading the reviews on like Trail Forks and stuff, and it was just like,
We'll have to make it out there.
yeah.
Plan a trip while it's still, because now's the great time to go down to these deserty places because it's good biking temperature compared to the summer when it's like 110,
Super hot,
120 degrees.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that goes for like Moab as well. Moab and St. George, they're prime right now from what I've seen. So
Yeah, I want to get out to Moab soon.
okay. All right, so we've talked about a lot of the different winter trails that you can go ride. So let's talk about some other issues that are happening right now in the mountain biking world. Have you been following at all the wilderness issues?
I mean, I've been trying to kind of read when I see someone post something. I care a lot about it, and I hope that I've heard that there's this bill that will change things so that the Wilderness Act doesn't apply to biking, I think is basically what it is.
Yeah, so let me
right?
tell you a little bit about the background. Back before mountain biking really existed, so mountain bikes actually did exist for a little bit, and then they came out with a bill or a law that said that mechanized travel was not allowed in wilderness areas. And unfortunately, a mountain bike is technically mechanized transport, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think that they intended to kick mountain bikes out at the time because it wasn't really, I mean, there were this was maybe in like the late 70s, in the 80s. So there weren't a lot of people riding their bikes on the dirt. So I don't think they intentionally ruled out mountain bikes. But so...
Well, the intention is that people don't destroy the wilderness experience.
Yeah, they want to make it harder for people to get into these wilderness areas. But then, like, one of the interesting things is you have things like horses, right? And horses allow you to get much further into the wilderness. So there's kind of this weird, well, they get to go into these wilderness areas and I don't.
And they definitely leave things behind.
They leave piles of stuff behind. So they're trying to change it now. So the bill was, and it was actually introduced, I'm trying to remember who did it, but it might have been, I think some of the Utah senators were involved or something like that.
Yeah, they tried it once like a year or two ago.
Yeah.
That didn't go well, maybe.
So, and I think it doesn't have enough votes to make it into, to get to a full vote. But what it is it should allow local areas to decide whether or not mountain bikes are allowed in their wilderness
Which is
area.
perfect.
Right.
Why
And
not?
I think that sounds great. And like I'm all for it. But one of the interesting things is IMBA. Are you familiar with IMBA?
So is that the land company that manages, or the group that manages the land? Or
No,
is
that's BLM. IMBA is the International Mountain Bikers Association.
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
And so they are actually lobbying against this bill.
Okay, why?
They say that by allowing bikes into the wilderness area, you're kind of leaving a back door for other things to get in as well.
I thought that the wording was really specific just for bikes and wheelchairs or something.
Yeah, and I think so. I don't fully understand their motivation, why they're lobbying against it, and I don't support that organization lobbying against it. I think that it's whether or not this is the correct solution. I think that there should be some solution. And I think allowing the local, because I'll be honest, like there are places that mountain bikes probably shouldn't be, right?
Yeah.
Like, but there's like if you look at like Europe and how bikes, they don't really have like, well, this is a wilderness area, you can't have bikes. You see videos of these guys like hucking their bikes on their shoulders and hiking up to the top of the Alps and riding them down, right? So I think that there should be a way to allow mountain bikes access to these wilderness areas.
I agree.
So what do you guys think? Have you guys run into any wilderness areas that you want to be able to ride? Because one of the things that has happened is in Colorado, I feel like they've used the wilderness areas as a tool to get mountain bikers out of certain areas. So hopefully we'll get a resolution on this and we'll get into wilderness areas.
Hopefully
if
soon.
it's
Because there's a wilderness area right over there in Alpine, and I accidentally wrote it, and I didn't
I was
know.
going to bring that up.
And I made a video on it, and people were like, "You're dumb. Take that down." And so I took it down and got educated. But I mean, that's like right here. So why can't we ride that? I would like to be able to ride stuff like that.
So what do you think? Tell us in the comments. We'll respond. But I think we're about up for time.
Yeah.
It's going on too. So we had a great time. Did you have fun?
Yeah. It was
Awesome.
good.
So hopefully you'll join us next week, and we'll try to bring up some more topics. Let us know if you guys want us to discuss something, if you're interested in any hot topics that are going on right now, and we'll see you next week. All right. This has been Between Two Wheels. Steve, Eric, we'll see you later.
Take care.